Gaza ceasefire and detainee exchange draft progresses in Doha, awaiting finalization. Lebanon's Nawaf Salam earns 60 votes in the country's first prime minister consultations. And the UN Security Council reviews progress on the Lebanon ceasefire through a closed session. It's 4 p.m. Cairo local time and you're now watching Q News. I'm Henny Saif and we begin today's bulletin with the latest developments in Gaza. A final draft for a Gaza ceasefire and detainee exchange deal has been sent to Israel and Hamas following a breakthrough negotiations held in Doha. The talks include Israeli intelligence officials, former U.S. envoy Jason Greenblatt, and Qatar's prime minister. Israeli media reported cautious progress, noting minor issues remain regarding the first group of detainees to be released. Negotiators expressed optimism with efforts underway to finalize the agreement soon. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office announced that he discussed progress in Gaza detainee release negotiations with U.S. President Joe Biden. Netanyahu informed Biden about the directives given to the Israeli negotiating team in Doha, emphasizing their efforts to secure the release of detainees. Talks remain ongoing as both sides work towards a resolution. Israeli Foreign Minister Gideon Sa'ar has confirmed progress in negotiations over a Gaza ceasefire deal, specifically regarding the release of Israeli detainees held by Hamas. He emphasized that Tel Aviv is working diligently to finalize the deal. Sa'ar made this statement during a press conference with Danish Foreign Minister, who highlighted the critical role of the United Nations Relief and Works Agency in aiding refugees.
A hostage deal, and soon we will know whether the other.
Israeli Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich has voiced strong opposition to the reported agreement being negotiated in Qatar to end the war in Gaza and facilitate the return of detainees. In a statement, Smotrich called the proposed deal a disaster for Israel's national security and described it as a surrender deal. His comments highlight internal divisions within Israel over the terms of the negotiations. As Gaza's crisis deepens, international mediators strive for a ceasefire amid ongoing Israeli airstrikes, rising casualties, and humanitarian devastation. And for more analysis on this story, we now move to Hela in our newsroom. Hela.
Thank you very much, Hani. And for further analysis on the situation in Gaza, we're joined from Ramallah by political science professor Dr. Abdel Nasser Makki. Welcome to Q News, Dr. Abdel Nasser. Now, can you please elaborate on the key points of the ceasefire and detainee exchange deal being negotiated in Doha and what breakthroughs have been achieved so far?
Yes, I think today there are many good news about this negotiation. As you know, now they reached to an cessation as like agreement, and this agreement between Hamas and between the Israeli government and the correspondent of the and with the Qatar and Egypt and the United States of America. I think now we could reach to almost to maybe 90 percentage from the agreement have been finished, have been achieved. 10 percentage it is just remaining, and it will be postponed to the after the agreement, because the agreement is that's from three parties or three stages. As you know, the first stage have been discussed, have been negotiated, and now they started to go ahead with this. The problem is that, or maybe the more challenge is about the logistic issues, about the exchange of the hostages and the prisoners between the two parties, and also
the Gaza Strip remains in crisis as negotiations for a ceasefire between Hamas and Israel continue. Recent Israeli airstrikes have caused massive casualties and damages, with the Palestinian Ministry of Health reporting over 46,000 deaths since October 2023. Qatar has proposed a final draft for a ceasefire and detainee exchange deal, following extensive talks in Doha involving Israeli intelligence officials, U.S. President-elect Donald Trump's envoy, and Qatar's Prime Minister. The proposal outlines a phased ceasefire and the release of hostages held by Hamas. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has sent a delegation, including Mossad Chief David Barney and Major General Nitzan Alon, to Doha to finalize the agreement ahead of Trump's January 20th inauguration. Meanwhile, U.S. President Joe Biden has pressed Netanyahu to expedite the ceasefire to release detainees and expand humanitarian aid to Gaza. Despite international pressure, challenges persist, including troop withdrawal from Gaza and logistical complexities of the detainee exchange. As the humanitarian crisis in Gaza drags on beyond 15 months, calls for an urgent resolution to the conflict intensify. With the situation rapidly deteriorating, the coming days are pivotal for reaching a ceasefire agreement to alleviate the suffering of the civilian population and stabilize the Middle East.
And for more analysis on this story, we now move to Hela in our newsroom. Hela.
Thank you very much, Hani. And for further analysis on the situation in Gaza, we're joined from Ramallah by political science professor Dr. Abdel Nasser Makki. Welcome to Qnews, Dr. Abdel Nasser. Now, can you please elaborate on the key points of the ceasefire and detainee exchange deal being negotiated in Doha, and what breakthroughs have been achieved so far?
Yes, I think today there are many good news about this negotiation. As you know, now they reached to an cessation as like agreement. And this agreement between Hamas and between the Israeli government and the correspondent of the and with the Qatar and Egypt and the United States of America. I think now we could reach to almost to maybe 90 percentage from the agreement have been finished, have been achieved. 10 percentage it is just remaining, and it will be postponed to the after the agreement, because the agreement is that's from three parties or three stages. As you know, the first stage have been discussed, have been negotiated, and now they started to go ahead with this. The problem is that, or maybe the more challenge is about the logistic issues, about the exchange of the hostages and the prisoners between the two parties, and also in the same time about the withdrawal from the Israeli from the some places like from Netzarim and from the middle of Gaza. So it's like starting It will be like one by one. When we finish the first stage, we'll go to another stage, and it will reach to end of the war after the finishing of three stages. So I think it's good news, and I hope that this will be maybe to reach to agreement, to be signed on the agreement, maybe until this week, the end of this week, or the first, or the early next week before Trump is coming to the White House. So this is, I think, until now. And as you mentioned on your, that report, that the American mediators, Mr. also Steve Witkoff, went to with Israeli, and also he went to Qatar with the Israeli intelligence departments, the Shabak and the Mossad, and that's mean this is good indicators from the Israeli that they are convenienced with the negotiation in Qatar, and that means there is a progressing, and that means we will reach to agreement. And this was before. It's like a miracle to reach this agreement, maybe in 2 or 3 days, while before that it was no signal that we could reach to agreement. It's just talking to reach to agreement every day without making anything on the ground.
So, how significant has the involvement of Qatar, the Israeli intelligence, and the U.S., particularly Trump's envoy, how has all these factors been in advancing these negotiations? What are the impact of all these parties on the negotiation process?
Yes, I think all these things, and from the beginning, before going to Doha, and before that starting this, or before 15 days, I think there is like work on under the table between all the parties without you mentioned anything about this. That discussion or negotiation. They don't want anybody to know about this until they reach to the agreement. As you know, in the last 15 days, the Trump push on Israel, and he talked to Netanyahu, and also Biden talked to Netanyahu, and Steve Witkoff said to Netanyahu, Bibi, we want to reach to agreement. And Trump want to reach to agreement before he come to the White House. And also in the same time, that even in the ground, there is many of the Israeli soldiers have been killed, as you know, before today, before even yesterday, and before 3 4 days. So also the Israeli, even in public opinion, Israeli, they are just asking why the Israelis there, why our soldiers killing without any reason. So we want to withdraw from Gaza because we don't have any work now. Even they didn't fulfill all what they said before, like Netanyahu in the beginning of the war. He said that he will destroy Hamas, he will reach and to release all the detainees or the hostages, but he didn't do anything. What is the hostages coming? Release it. It was died. So because of this, I think Netanyahu, and also there are another thing that Netanyahu could convenience the extreme, some of the extreme members in his government, like Smotrich and also like Ben Gvir, Smotrich and Ben Gvir, that he want they're supporting, and also he promised them that that their government will work in West Bank. Gaza is not their field, so they should withdraw from Gaza, and he also gave them guarantee that they could increase the settlements in West Bank, which is the core of the Israeli settlers, that's a project.
Yes. The Palestinian Ministry of Foreign Affairs has also warned of Israeli plans to displace Gaza residents to the West Bank. So how might this affect the broader dynamics of the ceasefire negotiations, especially that you mentioned the settlements issue?
Yes, I think now the Israeli, first of all, I think the government of Israel, the extreme Smotrich and Gvir, I don't think that they will draw from the government. Even today, Smotrich said, like, that speech which was angry, but I don't think that they will draw from the government, because I think they have their agenda in the West Bank, not in Gaza. So I think it will positively for the Palestinian in Gaza. I think the Israeli will withdraw. Maybe they will make some arrangement in the border of Gaza, but they will not stay, especially in the Netzarim and also in the middle of Gaza. And some positive indicators, according to the agreement, the people who displaced from the north of Gaza to the south, they allow them to come back. Now, I think what have been suggested or have been planned before, or the people said that they will be the people of Gaza will go out of Gaza. I think this has been failure now because the people of Gaza stay, and also they could stay in Gaza, and they didn't go even from the south to the border of Egypt or to Sinai, as they mentioned before. So I think for Gaza, maybe it will take many years in order to the reconciliation and rebuilding all the what happening there,
But
and to
doctor,
maintain what.
there remains some concerns as well for both parties, for Israel and Hamas, regarding the implementation of the detainee exchange and the ceasefire agreement. What are the main concerns for both parties, in your own opinion?
Yes, I think the Israel for this is something like logistic issues, especially Hamas need time in order to know about all these detainees, because as you know, some of the detainees is not in the hand of Hamas. They are in the hand of, that some maybe family or some factions here and here in the north or the south or the middle of Gaza. So they need time in order to know about all these issues and to know about the detainees situation. While for the prisoners today, as you know, the head of the Palestinian prisoner, Mr. Kaddoura Faris, went to Qatar in order to discuss about the Palestinian prisoner who should be released on the first and the second stages. Especially, they mentioned about 200 from the who are in the jail, and they are not allowed to go out from the jail, and who are accused to kill the Israeli, like bloodshed, yeah. And in the same time, I think we are talking about the children, we are talking about the women there. But at the end, I think American and Qatar and Egypt, I think they are the main guarantee for this, and they will do what they could do in order that this agreement will go ahead without any problem. Maybe there are, as I said, logistic issues, but like what they did before, in the last year, they could release some of the detainees. But at the end, I think if all the parties is willing to fulfill this agreement without any problem, maybe there are some problems here, but at the end, they could reach to agreement. And after that, the Israeli will withdraw from Gaza.
Well, thank you very much, Science Professor Dr. Abdel Nasser Mekki. Thank you very much, Dr. Abdel Nasser, for joining us here on Q News. Now we go back to you, Hani.
Thank you, Hela. And the Palestinian Ministry of Foreign Affairs has cautioned against Israeli plans to forcibly displace Palestinians from Gaza to the West Bank, describing it as a step towards annexation. The ministry accused Israel of intensifying exploitation in the West Bank and East Jerusalem and called for urgent international action. It also criticized Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu for prioritizing far-right demands over peace efforts, using violence to maintain his coalition at the expense of Palestinian rights and regional stability. On the 465th day of the ongoing Israeli aggression in Gaza, several Palestinians, including women and children, have been killed or injured. According to the Palestinian news agency, 2 Palestinians were killed by Israeli Navy gunfire on a Gaza beach. Meanwhile, 8 others were killed and several injured in attacks targeting civilian gatherings in central Gaza. Israeli forces also struck Khan Yunis, killing 1 Palestinian, and targeted Jabalia in northern Gaza, leaving others injured. At least 5 Palestinians have been killed and others have been injured by occupation bombing in West Gaza. Palestinian media reported that the Israeli forces targeted a school sheltering displaced Palestinians west of the Strip. Four Palestinians have been killed after the occupation warplanes bombed a civilian vehicle, North Palestinian city of Rafah. Palestinian media also reported that the occupation's artillery shelling and heavy gunfire continued west of the Nusayrat camp in central Gaza Strip. Gaza's health ministry have confirmed that Palestinian death toll from the ongoing Israeli aggression on Gaza since October 7th has surged to over 46,500, with more than 109,700 injured. The ministry added that Israeli occupation forces committed 2 massacres against families in the Gaza Strip over the past 24 hours, killing at least 19 Palestinians and injuring 71 others. And from Gaza, we move on to what's happening in Lebanon.
كل المستهدفين هن مدنيين.
وضع شيء مرعب، شيء بخوف.
Lebanon's President Joseph Aoun has begun consultations on appointing a Prime Minister designate, starting with Deputy Speaker Elias Boussab. The process, involving 6 parliamentary blocks, ends today. Parliament member Ibrahim Minmine withdrew his candidacy in favor of Nawaf Salem, while Fouad Makhzoumi also exited the race. The new Prime Minister is expected to be announced soon. Lebanon's parliamentary consultations to designate a new prime minister at the Babda Palace have concluded the first round. Nawaf Salem emerged as the frontrunner with 60 votes, while former Prime Minister Najib Mikati received just 9 votes. Lebanese media reports indicate significant divisions among lawmakers over the choice of the next government leader. One lawmaker abstained from naming a candidate. Consultations are expected to resume in the coming days. The United Nations Security Council is holding a closed session on Lebanon to review the progress of a US and French brokered ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah. The agreement that was effective on November 27th ended 13 months of conflict, with the Israeli military withdrawing south of Blue Nile and Lebanese forces deploying south of the Litani. Members are expected to welcome the reduced violence and urge full implementation of the deal. Lebanese President Joseph Aoun has hosted a U.S. military delegation at the presidential palace. The American delegation reaffirmed the United States' unwavering support for the Lebanese army. Discussions also focused on the situation in South Lebanon, particularly the implementation of the UN Resolution 1701. The delegation emphasized the ongoing collaboration between the Lebanese Armed Forces, the United Nations Interim Force in Lebanon, UNIFIL, and the Monitoring Committee to maintain stability along the southern border. Arab League Secretary General Ahmed Abul Ghait met the Lebanese Prime Minister Najib Mikati to discuss recent political developments in Lebanon. After the meeting, Abul Ghait congratulated Lebanon on electing Joseph Aoun as its new president, expressed his leadership structure would pave the way for stability. The Emirates news agency has reported that a high-level Emirati delegation has arrived in Lebanon to make arrangements for reopening the UAE embassy in Beirut after 3 years of closure. The delegation's visit to Beirut comes a day after UAE President Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan and newly elected Lebanese President Joseph Aoun agreed to take the necessary steps to restore diplomatic representation. In the United States, 24 people have been confirmed dead in the fires that ravaged through the city of Los Angeles. The county of Los Angeles medical examiner published a list of fatalities without giving details of any identities. 8 of the dead were found in the Palisades fire zone and 16 in the Eden fire zone. These are all the news we have for now, but here's a reminder of the stories we've been covering. A Gaza ceasefire and detainee exchange draft progresses in Doha, awaiting finalization. Lebanon's Nawaf Salam earned 60 votes in the country's first prime minister consultations. And the UN Security Council reviews progress of the Lebanese ceasefire through a closed session. This concludes our news bulletin for this hour, but please don't forget to follow Q News on YouTube, Facebook, X, Instagram, and TikTok at QNewsEGY to stay informed. I'm Henny Saif. Thank you for joining us.